My sorry were? I sat at my desk, the skyline of San Francisco, casting long golden reflections against the glass walls of my office as I stared at my laptop screen in disbelief. The group chat messages blinked back at me, harsh and unfiltered. Messages I was never supposed to see. Someone had forwarded the screenshots anonymously, likely Chase Blake's assistant, who must still harbor some guilt over how I'd been treated all these years. The message was blunt and logistical. Chase, meeting at 3 p.m. tomorrow to finalize the Stratuscore deal. Book conference room B. Then the responses followed. Brooke, should we loop in Taylor Chase? Why she's not one of us. Brooke again, exactly, she'd just derail it. Remember that nonsense she brought up about employee stock options? Chase replied with a laughing emoji. Total joke. She doesn't get real business. I lowered my phone slowly, my fingers curling tightly around it. The irony was so thick it could have suffocated me. They were mocking me from the comfort of their inherited empire, while I read their words from the top floor of Stratuscore Technologies, a company I had built from the ground up, brick by digital brick. They were seated at the kids' table of innovation, and I was the one paying for the banquet. For nearly 4 years, I had maintained my anonymity. Behind the scenes, under the name T. Ellis, I crafted one of the most explosive software companies on the West Coast, a rising star in enterprise SaaS solutions. The press dubbed me the Invisible Visionary. Investors called me brilliant, my stepfamily. They still considered me a footnote, irrelevant. They had no idea who they were really dealing with. It all started when I was 16 and everything changed. My dad, Daniel Grayson, married a corporate powerhouse named Victoria Blake. She was all sharp lines and sharper words, polished like a courtroom dagger, and as emotionally accessible as marble. Along with her came her 2 children, Chase and Brooke. Older, connected, oozing Ivy League elitism, and the kind of confidence that only ever came from inherited trust funds. I was the stray cat at their gala. Victoria once gave me a tight-lipped smile and said, "You'd make an excellent receptionist someday, Taylor," as if it were a compliment. While Chase took internships at flashy hedge funds and Brooke spent months jet-setting to exclusive networking retreats, I worked nights bartending in the Mission District. By day, I crammed every online boot camp I could afford into my schedule, teaching myself full-stack development, one coffee-fueled session at a time. They were too self-absorbed to notice I was laying the digital blueprint for something far more powerful than any of their startup investments. And that equity idea they so proudly laughed off in that meeting 2 years ago. That was the last time I ever tried to contribute anything to Blake & Co. They had jeered, dismissed, and practically escorted me out with their laughter. 2 months later, I launched Stratuscore Technologies. Now, as fate would have it, they were negotiating what they thought was a life-saving buyout of my company, still unaware that I was the woman holding the pen. Stratuscore wasn't just profitable, it was personal. It was born from a vision where technology didn't just chase margins, it championed people. That vision had carried us to securing the Blake BioHealth contract, a prize that once sat proudly under Victoria's nose. In just 1 year, we took it. In 3, we became their fiercest rival. And now, after a meticulously orchestrated series of silent investor buyouts and quiet stock acquisitions, I was about to complete the final move, acquiring Blake & Co. Holdings outright. Their kingdom built on outdated policies and toxic hierarchy was cracking at the foundation. Clients were fleeing, the media had grown unkind, and the board, desperate. Enter Stratuscore, cloaked in the persona of a mysterious silver-haired CEO who refused to appear in person. They thought they were being saved by an aging billionaire recluse. They thought wrong. My laptop chimed a soft ping, reminding me of the upcoming board meeting, 3:00 p.m. sharp. I had reserved the room myself weeks ago, under the guise of a corporate liaison, the same time Chase and Brooke had blocked off for their secret negotiations. They believed they were about to woo a new partner. In reality, they were about to meet their employer. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a photograph. Me and Dad Daniel at the edge of Big Sur, back when the world still made sense. He died from a stroke just 2 years later, leaving behind memories and a wife who couldn't wait to erase every trace of him, including me. Victoria merged his small consulting firm into her empire like it was a line item on a spreadsheet. She told me, "You're an adult now, Taylor. Time to find your own way." So I did, and now I was buying everything she thought I could never touch. I pressed my headset. Sam, are we set? Yes, Miss Ellis. Samantha Rivera's voice came through calm and precise. Legal's standing by. The board just needs to sign. Chase and Brooke still think you're a ghost in a gray suit. I smiled at my reflection. Good. Make sure the camera's rolling. I want their reactions caught on film. Then I walked into the private bathroom. The woman staring back at me from the mirror bore little resemblance to the teen they used to scorn. My posture was confident, my black suit custom-tailored, my smile cool and deliberate. I slipped on a pair of sleek, dark-rimmed glasses. Not because I needed them, but because they transformed me into someone they wouldn't recognize until it was too late. Miss Ellis, came Samantha Rivera's voice through the sleek intercom embedded in my walnut desk. Her tone, as always, was crisp and composed. The Blake siblings have arrived. They're in conference room 3B. Live feed is active. Would you like to tune in? I leaned forward, tapped a key, and the screen lit up with the security camera stream. There they were, Chase and Brooke Blake, still radiating the same entitled smugness, still dressed in luxury labels, like they were heading to a fashion shoot rather than a business negotiation. Chase was thumbing through something on his phone, angling it toward Brooke with a smirk that hadn't changed since we were teenagers. She let out a laugh, cold and familiar. Can you believe Taylor even tried applying here? Chase scoffed. As a product manager, Brooke snorted, shaking her head. Like Stratus Core would hire someone like that. Did you see the resume, San Jose State? Honestly? I heard she's doing code grunt work for some no-name startup, Chase added, barely containing his amusement. Pretty sad. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. Because I expected them to say those things. I wanted them to. That resume, it was mine. A deliberately crafted piece of bait, with outdated credentials and an old photo attached. I had known they'd mock it the moment they saw it. They assumed I was trying to break in. What they didn't realize was I already owned the building. A glance at the wall clock, 2:25 p.m. Showtime was close. Sam, I said into the mic embedded in my desk, let the Blakes know we'll be starting a few minutes early. And when you announce me, make sure you refer to me as Miss Ellis. I rose, smoothed the lapels of my tailored black blazer, and stacked the final contract folders in perfect alignment. 15 years. 15 years of being overlooked, belittled, excluded. Of watching them throw away every advantage while I clawed for every inch. Every injustice had funneled into this exact point in time, this singular room. My father, Daniel Grayson, flashed across my memory how proud he was when I built my first app at 13, how he'd told me that legacy wasn't about what you were given, but what you made from nothing. I breathed in, feeling his belief in me rising like oxygen. I'm ready when you are, Miss Ellis. Sam's voice returned through the intercom. I gave myself one final look in the mirror by the office door. My reflection was polished, unreadable. Glasses adjusted folders in hand, heart steady. I stepped out each stride, deliberate, my heels echoing like punctuation against the marble floors. Through the frosted glass of 3B, I caught another glimpse of Chase and Brooke, still laughing, still fully unaware that the joke was no longer mine to bear. Sam stood beside the door with her usual grace hand poised on the handle. She had been with me since the early days, one of the few who knew the truth from the start. Her eyes met mine. Shall I introduce you? I gave her a single nod. Let's begin. If you're ready for the moment masks fall and truth steps into the light, don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter is one you'll want front row seats to. Sam opened the door. Mr. and Miss Blake, she said clearly, allow me to introduce Miss Taylor Ellis, CEO of Stratus Core Technologies. I walked into the room with precision, the sound of my heels slicing through the silence. Chase and Brooke turned, expecting someone else. Their confident expressions twisted into disbelief, then horror. Hello, Chase? Brooke. I let my smile curve slowly, deliberately, one I had inherited from Victoria Blake herself. Sharp and knowing. Shall we talk about the future of Blake & Kober Holdings? The silence that followed was exquisite. 12 seconds passed before Chase's mouth fell open. Brooke found her voice first, though it cracked with disbelief. Taylor, what is this? Some kind of joke? I moved to the head of the table, placing my folders down in front of the chair that had once belonged to their father. No joke, I replied coolly, though I must admit your earlier comments about my resume were rather entertaining. Chase looked like he had swallowed a rock. You can't be T. Ellis, you're just... A failure, I offered, one brow arched. No, just someone who worked while you spent your trust fund. Now let's get into the details. I opened the top folder. Stratuscorp will acquire Blake & Co. for $2.4 billion. Select divisions will be absorbed into our ecosystem. Executive restructuring starts today. Brooke slammed her manicured hand against the table, her diamond bracelet clinking. You lied to everyone. You played us. I protected my privacy, I said simply. I built something real, something earned, not gifted. I didn't blink until she dropped her gaze. Inheritance isn't the same as integrity, Brooke, I added. Substance always outlasts image. Chase's voice cracked. Mom's going to explode when she finds out. She already signed off, I interrupted smoothly. Victoria, too. She just didn't realize whose offer she was endorsing. I smiled, slowly. I look forward to seeing her face as well. They both froze. The reality began to settle in the unspoken power shift to the finality. What do you want from us? Brooke asked quietly, voice tight with dread. I leaned back utterly calm. What I want, I already have it. Control, legacy, the future. Then I flipped another folder open. But let's go over your exit options, or rather your reassignments. Chase paled. You're firing us. Not exactly. I slid 2 job offers across the table. Chase, you'll serve as Assistant Director of Client Relations. Brooke, Junior Project Coordinator. You'll see a substantial pay cut, of course, but you'll now qualify for the Employee Wellness Program, the one you mocked years ago. Brooke's jaw fell. You can't expect us to accept this. You have a choice, I said, voice still even. You're welcome to decline. Just remember your non-compete clauses are ironclad. And Blake & Co. is no longer independent, so options will be scarce. Chase collapsed back into his chair, stunned. You've been planning this for years. Not planning, I said quietly, gathering the remaining folders. Just working, while you coasted. Now I'm giving you something you never gave me a choice. I rose slowly, the soft rustle of my blazer, whispering like the turning of a final page. My hands moved with measured precision as I gathered the presentation folders, the culmination of years, not just of work, but of exile, of erasure, of long, silent resolve. I looked across the table at Chase and Brooke Blake, who still sat paralyzed in disbelief, their world tilting beneath the weight of a truth they had never imagined. You have until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I said, my voice as calm and clear as a winter lake. If you accept the roles offered, HR will guide your onboarding. If you don't, I allowed a pause, the kind that let consequence settle like a fog. Security will handle the rest. I turned toward the door, my heels clicking faintly against the polished marble floor, when Brooke's voice, brittle as cracked glass, broke the tension. Wait, what about Mom? She asked, her tone suddenly stripped of pride. What are you going to do to her? I stopped at the threshold, my fingers resting lightly on the doorframe. For a moment I said nothing, letting the air still. Then I turned my head just enough for my voice to carry. Victoria made her choices 15 years ago, I replied, each word edged with restrained fire. Today, she lives with the consequences. Their eyes widened, but I didn't wait for a reply. And don't waste time warning her, I added with a faint, ironic smile. She's already in a board meeting, one she believes is just another chance to charm her way back into power. Except this time, she's about to meet T. Ellis, for the very first time. The second confrontation of the day was already unfolding high above the bay in Stratuscorp's grandest conference suite, a cathedral of glass and light perched on the top floor. The room shimmered with ambition, transparent walls that opened onto a sweeping view of the water, a table the length of a city bus, and chairs that whispered of both comfort and intimidation. Victoria Blake sat precisely at the center of that polished table, regal in a pale silk blazer, her dark hair sculpted to immaculate precision, her spine straight as a ruler. Her expression was unreadable elegance forged into armor, but I could sense the wheels turning behind those watchful eyes. She was planning already, calculating how to leverage whatever aging tycoon she believed she was about to meet. Outside the glass double doors, Sam Rivera stood poised, tablet in hand, her face composed and steady. They're all ready for you, Miss Ellis, she said. Would you like me to announce you? I shook my head gently. No, I said, my lips curving into a knowing smile. This one I'll do myself. The doors parted like a curtain, and I stepped into the room. The transformation of Victoria Blake's face was subtle but seismic. For a fraction of a second, her composure cracked, a flicker in the eyes, a tightening of the mouth, a breath held just a beat too long. Good afternoon, I said, letting my gaze sweep the room before returning to her. I'm Taylor Ellis, CEO of Stratuscorp Technologies. Some of you may also remember me as Taylor Grayson. Silence swept through the boardroom like a gust of cold air. Victoria did not speak. Her jaw was set, her posture unchanged, but her hands curled ever so slightly around the edge of the table. The next hour unfolded like a symphony of precision and reckoning. I laid out a vision for the company she had spent decades building, a vision that bore no resemblance to her rigid patriarchal empire. There would be integration, modernization, a complete overhaul of leadership culture. Merit would replace legacy. Equity would be more than a buzzword. Employees, those who had been overlooked for decades, would become the center of the enterprise. Victoria sat motionless, her lips pressed together in a tight, thin line. As I spoke, I imagined every word dismantling another brick in the walls she had so carefully constructed. When the meeting adjourned and the other board members filtered out in a hush of confusion and reverence, Victoria tried to disappear with them, slipping toward the exit like a shadow in retreat. But I was not finished. "Victoria," I said softly, halting her with one word. She turned with slow precision, and for the first time in 15 years, I saw it: fear. Not terror, not desperation, but the quiet kind, the kind that creeps in when a person realizes they are no longer the apex predator in the room. How she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "How did you build this? How did you buy the company you were never good enough for?" I leaned against the table, arms crossed, eyes steady. "The same way I survived after you pushed me out," I said. "I worked. While you closed doors, I found others. While you claimed power, I built it." She said nothing. Perhaps there were no words for what she was feeling. "This isn't revenge, Victoria," I continued. "This is justice. A reminder that success isn't a birthright. It's earned. With grit. With purpose. With people who care about more than appearances." She looked down, her breath unsteady. "So what now?" she asked, the steel in her voice finally beginning to melt. "You tear it all down?" "No," I said softly. "I make it better. Blake & Co. will become a division of Stratuscore with a new mission technology that serves society. Your legacy won't disappear, but it will evolve." She hesitated, then asked in me. "You'll keep your board seat," I said, "but only as a minor shareholder. Your voting power is now limited." I smiled, not unkindly. "Call it a lesson in humility." She turned to leave, a ghost of pride still clinging to her shoulders. But I wasn't quite done. "Oh, and Victoria," I said casually, "Sunday dinner, I think I'll be attending after all." The weeks that followed passed like a quiet storm, gradual, inevitable, and deeply transformative. Chase and Brooke took their demotions with a mix of resentment and grudging acceptance. But under the weight of responsibility, something began to shift. They learned to work, to listen, to show up. Victoria remained mostly silent in meetings, but occasionally she watched me with an expression I couldn't quite place, suspicion tinged with something close to admiration. The media painted the story in strokes of vengeance and drama, but they missed the truth. This wasn't a tale of revenge. It was restoration. The real victory was in the transformation. The people of Blake & Co., once forgotten, stifled, dismissed, now stood tall. Their ideas mattered, their work mattered, and innovation surged like breath newly drawn. The empire that had once been a monument to elitism became a beacon of inclusivity, equity, and possibility. 1 year later, I sat in my corner office, sunlight dancing across the glass, the city stretching beyond like a living testament to change. Quarterly reports glowed on my screen, profits up 42%, propelled by the very platforms I had once begged them to believe in. Chase had grown into his new role with unexpected competence once he learned to truly listen. He discovered his worth wasn't tied to a surname. Brooke, too, had found her rhythm. Discipline and accountability had awakened strengths even she hadn't known she possessed. A soft knock at the door. "Miss Ellis," Sam said. "Your step-siblings are here for their review." "Send them in," I replied, turning to the window once more. The view had changed. We all had. They entered quietly. No designer drama, no smirks. Just quiet focus and dignity shaped by a year of growth. "Please have a seat," I said. "Let's talk about your progress." As we discussed their development goals, I thought of my father, of how he believed true success wasn't in defeating others, but in becoming who you were meant to be. I didn't take over Blake & Co. to destroy it. I did it to prove what they never saw, that merit defines legacy. And in rebuilding what they took for granted, we all became something better, not from spite, but from purpose. And in that I found peace. If this journey moved you, if it reminded you of your own quiet strength or of battles you've faced behind closed doors, I hope you'll consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Stories like this matter not just for the endings, but for the people they inspire to begin again.